Hi everyone, so in this video I'll be talking about the documents that you need to apply for your study permit in Canada. So I know if you've gotten admission, then in any of the colleges or universities in Canada, whether for bachelor's degree or for master's or for PhD, then the next step is actually to apply for your study permit. Well, what exactly are the documents that are needed for you to apply for your study permit apart from the letter of acceptance that you've gotten from the college or the university? Now, the documents I'm going to be listing today is not exclusive, but to some extent, I'm saying about 90%, because the documents that you need, it depends on your own circumstances, right? For example, if you are employed and as at the time you're applying for your study permit, the documents you're going to need is different from someone that owns a business and someone that is being sponsored or someone that is doing self-sponsorship. So there are a lot of things that determine the document. So when I mention all of these documents, then you look at the one that applies to you, and then you go with that. So if I mention anyone that doesn't apply to you, then you can just skip that and then apply, and then choose the one that applies to you. So whether you are applying for master's, diploma, basically almost fairly the same documents that are needed. So without further ado, let's go straight into listing all of the documents. Has at least 6 months validity. Even like 1 year is usually better, because when they apply and it take them like 1 to 2 months to 3 months for them to review application and accept, so that by the time you are about to go submit your passport, you have at least 6 months validity in your passport. Another thing you need is a letter of acceptance, or LOA, from a designated learning institute. So this is the letter that is provided to you by an institution that accepts you for either a master's program, a PhD, a diploma, or a bachelor's degree. The third thing you need is your proof of financial support. So you need to show that it can be scholarship or loans, or bank statement or financial support from sponsor, letter of sponsorship from your parents, or as the case may be. Just show that if it's your own, you have a personal business and all that, so you can show your corporate affairs commission registration and all that. But overall, this document is going to be kind of attached in one PDF, just to show that you have the capacity to pay your tuition even without working in Canada. Then you are going to need all of the study permit application form. Okay, so you need to show all of the documents that are it's going to be a form that you're going to fill, like application for to study in Canada. You fill all of the information, name, address, the school you want to study, and all is just ask some very basic questions that you are to fill. And then you're also going to fill a form called the temporary resident visa form, TRV form, depending on your country. So you may need this particular visa. If you are coming from Africa, you definitely need a temporary resident visa. Now, a temporary resident visa is not a study permit. Okay, a temporary resident visa just means this enables you to come to Canada. Okay, for your study permit, you don't get study permit in the country. When you arrive Canada at the port of entry, that is when you're going to be offered a study permit. The next thing you need is passport size photograph. So there's going to be a requirement for your passport photograph. Make sure it snaps probably like a white background. I've forgotten like the recent specification, but good background. You can check the Canadian website to do the current specification for passport size photograph, because you're going to upload that when you're applying. Then the other thing is you need a police clearance certificate. So this actually helps to show that you have no criminal record, right? So when you go to like any local police station, or if you check the Canadian website, it can tell you some of the address where you can get a police clearance certificate in a particular country of interest. And another thing you can also include is your you need to make sure that you have the means to make payment. It can probably be a Visa or MasterCard. They're going to ask the question, do you have the means to pay this when you're done? So this payment is actually going to be once you're done with all your application. As of now, it's about $235 for study permit and biometrics. So if you apply for visitors visa, work permit, it might be other expenses that are added. So this is specifically for study permit. So make sure you have the means to pay that, because until you pay that, your application is not actually submitted. Then the other thing you want to also include is the proof for your test results. If you are not from an English speaking country, it's good to have evidence to show that you have all of the language test results. It can be IELTS, SOPIP, just to demonstrate all of your English and your French proficiency as well. So depends on the program that you are actually planning to apply for. The next thing that you also want is some other application forms. For example, there's going to be family information that you're going to be including, so you need to get all your family information, date of birth, and where they are currently, their address, and if they want to follow you to Canada, include all of those ones. The next thing is if you did your education credential evaluation, ACA, using some other agency like the World Education Service West, you can also include that. But if you completed your studies in Canada, you don't need this educational credential evaluation. But if you're applying for this, actually also applies, so whether you're applying for a study permit extension, as the case may be. But for the most part, when they're applying to school, they don't do that. But if you've done that to evaluate your credentials, make sure you add that. Another thing you need to add is a very good letter of explanation. This is one of the most important documents. This is actually where you explain all of the things that you need in terms of outlining your purpose of study, why you choose Canada, your finances, or what you're going to do back home. This just helps you put everything together. So make sure this is well written, read it over and over again, and then also seek other people to an external person to read it to see if it's logically based, because the people that review your application, they are very logical people and they really are very critical. So make sure your application is top notch. And another thing you can also I've already talked about a letter of acceptance from an institution. Then another thing you want to add, if you have a letter of support from a guarantor, from a sponsor, you can add affidavit of sponsorship. You can do a letter of sponsorship. They can bring their own letter of introduction as well, to tell them where they are working or the kind of business that they are doing that makes them eligible to sponsor you. So this is also very important. And then if there is any other letter of scholarship that from the university, or you got scholarship from the government as well, you're going to need this letter of sponsorship or financial sponsorship from any of these bodies. And then another thing, if you are currently employed, this might be important to get a letter of employment. And this can be, if you don't have the employment letter, you can try to get the letter of introduction from the place where you're currently working. This just states that this person is currently working here, and then this is their annual salary. I mean, this is especially for those that are planning to apply for a master's or PhD, or if you're applying for a diploma and you already have a bachelor's degree and you're currently working, that's fine. If you're applying for a bachelor's degree, then you don't need, and if you're not working, you don't need letter of employment. And then if you've graduated already and you're applying, let's say, for master's, PhD, so you should have your education transcript and your certificate. So always have all of your certificates and your transcripts ready, because you're going to include all of these things. And another thing you want to also include, it is especially true for those that are married. So if you're married and you're going to be coming with your spouse, then you're going to have to add your marriage certificate if needed. But if you're not coming with them, I don't think you'll be required. If they require it, if you ask the question, depends on how you answer the questions that you're going to bring, like kind of a interview questions. Then if you say your spouse is home with you, then you're going to show evidence that both of you are married. If you have birth certificates, this is also important. This is just to add in, I know you've already added your passport with your birth date, which is fine, but if you have your birth certificate as well, you can also include all of those ones. And then for medical exam, this is very important. If you did an upfront medicals, this is basically the medicals that you do, so that when your application is now reviewed, you don't have to worry about medicals. So you can do upfront. If you do upfront, it's pretty good, right? So that when you review application, if they see that you've done a medical, then it's going to be passed that you've passed medical, then they can proceed to review other part of your application, right? So it's important. Then another thing you can also add is if you have a resume and you want to attach it, like, you know, so CV, this is optional, right? But you just want to make things a bit juicy, just to give them a background of your education, your experience, just a very concise way of explaining everything. Add a CV is really going to add a lot of things to your resume, right? Another thing is, if you have a business, it might be worthwhile to include your business, have letters for your business registration, you know, your ID card for your businesses, and a whole lot of other things. And then if you have letters of recommendation as well, it might also be worthwhile to have all of these letters and include them. So I think these are everything. So once you filled everything, I would usually encourage, make sure you check your forms over and over and over again before actually submitting them, because once you submit, you can't delete the document after you submit it. So make sure you look through them over and over and over again. So once you have all of these documents ready, then start your application, and then make sure you complete it within the shortest possible time. And once everything is completed, click on next and then make the payment. Once you've made the payment, after about 24 hours and the application is submitted, after about 24 hours, we get a form for biometrics, right? So for biometrics, probably just print it out and then book a place to go to any of these visa offices, you know, visa application center closest to you, and do your biometrics. So once you've done your biometrics, start waiting for a decision. And once you have that decision that, oh, we've looked at your application and we've requested for your passport, it means that your application has been approved. So submit your passport and then wait your visa about 1 or 2 weeks, and then once the visa comes, book a flight, come to Canada, and then they will reach out to me if this video actually helped you, and then we can see that and just talk about that. So if you have any other thing that I haven't mentioned that you think, if you have any specific question, leave the question in the comment section. I'll try to address that question. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and like this video so that it will help the YouTube algorithm to recommend this video to other people. So thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next video.